Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Finally Got a Date with Sakura? Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. It was not well known that Sakura Haruno loved sci-fi. Of course, it wasn't overly surprising to anyone who knew the girl. Sakura devoured books like oxygen. Both the librarians at the civilian and shinobi libraries knew her by sight and there were always at least 3 books stacked by her bed. Her tastes varied. Romances to gossip about with her peers, history to ace her tests at the academy, and a random assortment of others to impress any adult who thought to quiz her about an obscure subject. But her true love, the books she reached for when her spirit was low, was sci-fi. If asked, she would deny it viciously. Sci-fi novels were for kids, or losers like Naruto, but secretly her heart thrilled at the adventures of the brave and beautiful kunoichi who battled monsters from the other side of the moon, mastered long-lost jutsu to save their villages, or traveled through space and time to save their loved ones. Time travel fascinated her. Sakura loved the mental challenge of entangling time paradoxes or analyzing just when and how she would nudge the course of the universe to fix everything. At the tender age of 8.5, she was already full of regrets and spent long, rainy afternoons sprawled on her bed thinking how she would go back and reset her life if she ever could. But Sakura was a practical ninja as well as an imaginative one. She set up a failsafe for her time-traveling future self. First, she mentally chose a book at random from her shelf. This would be the drop point. If Sakura ever needed to contact herself, she would write a message on the last page and sign it with a flower. Having decided this, Sakura assigned the location and the signature to 2 separate parts of her memory, just in case T and I would ever go looking. This compartmentalization was another skill she learned from her reading. As often as the brave and beautiful kunoichis risked everything to travel back in time, they were just as likely to be caught by brooding and handsome T and I specialists with dark pasts who may or may not be time travelers themselves. She was just being practical after all. The years passed and Sakura more or less forgot her plan. Maybe once or twice a year, she would flip through the traveling book which survived her frequent culling of the library, but the pages remained blank. Still, the possibility that she would one day find a message brought a smile to her face even if her belief faded as the realities of the academy caught up to her. Graduation came, passed, and left Sakura unsure if it was the best or worst day of her life. Best, because she had not only graduated at the top of her class but had also been placed on a genin team with Sasuke, while Ino was stuck with her family's configuration. Worse, because her team also included Naruto who was annoying, loud, and constantly asking her out on dates. The next day, Sakura revised her assessment. It was the worst. Her sensei was insane, completely insane. Sakura decided as she slumped into her house after their first day of training in that stupid, confusing, pointless bell test. Should be locked up, she amended as she showered the sweat and dust from the day down the drain. Or at least not allowed near kids, she concluded as she slumped down on her bed. To her right were a history text, a book of classical poetry, and one of her favorite time travel stories. There was no question of which one she was going to read first. It had been too long, too frustrating a day to spend learning something new. But her hand hesitated over the text. A memory clicked in her brain. Checking to make sure the house was quiet, Sakura closed the drapes on her window and went over to her bookshelf. By now, she no longer expected to find anything, but the possibility always thrilled her. It was her graduation day, after all. A pivotal moment in her life if there ever was one. Smiling to herself, she opened her book to the back page. Her scream echoed through the house. ... Sakura. Her mother appeared in her doorway, chakra flaring and kunai out, but Sakura sat on the floor looking stunned but unharmed. What is wrong? Nothing. Sakura glanced at her quickly and stood up. Mebuki noticed that her hands were clasped behind her back and her legs a little shaky. I was frustrated by my team, and thought yelling would help. Did it? Mebuki cast a quick genjutsu detection seal, but there didn't appear to be any foreign chakra in the room. Whatever was bothering her daughter didn't appear to be ninja in origin. Not really, Sakura confessed. But thanks for checking. Mebuki relaxed slightly and offered her daughter a smile. Sakura was a genin now, legally an adult in their society, and Mebuki had been younger than 12 when she first assumed such responsibility. It was time to trust that if Sakura needed help, she knew how to ask for it. Genin teams aren't forever, Mebuki consoled sympathetically. Pass your Chunin test and try to get along with them for time being. A pained look crossed Sakura's face and Mebuki laughed. Come down for dinner soon. I want to see you before I head to the border. Yep, Sakura agreed. When her mother shut the door, Sakura collapsed back onto the bed and looked at her book. On the back page a note was written that she had no memory of writing. Go on a date with Naruto. It was signed with a flower. 2. Hey Sakura-chan, will you go on a date with me today? Okay. It was difficult to tell who was more surprised by the response, the girl who agreed, the boy who asked, or the boy who was eavesdropping. No, that was a stupid question. Of course, Sasuke looked the least surprised. He usually looked the least of any emotion. Wah, you mean it? Really? Really? Naruto was staring at her like she had grown 2 heads, and even Sasuke was focusing on her with more interest than he had ever shown. If the first agreement had been an accident, Sakura couldn't back down now. Not with Sasuke was actually looking at her. Instead, she scratched her cheek embarrassedly. Ah, yeah, I guess. I mean, we finished all our missions and I don't have anywhere to be tonight. Her mother had left for a mission of border patrol and her father wasn't back from tending the messenger hawks until tomorrow. Sakura, though used to coming home to an empty house, wasn't especially keen to head home. Also the message, the damn message that had been playing in her mind all night and all day. Did she really send that to herself? And why? And why Naruto of all people? Wahoo! Naruto cheered and punched the air. His smile looked like it was about to split his face in half. She had never seen him so excited, not even when he showed up after graduation sporting his new forehead protector. Sakura's smile grew a little strained. This is exactly what she didn't want from a date: the shouting, the cheering, the... Well, actually, it was a little gratifying to make someone so excited with a simple yes. Especially after the numerous cold rebuffs from Sasuke. Really? You're not joking? You're serious? Naruto looked like he couldn't believe his luck. This is the best day ever. Believe it. Can we get ramen? I know the best ramen place in the whole city. You'll love it. It's the best. Naruto didn't shut up or stop jumping around once as they made their way from the training grounds to Ichiraku's ramen stand. People actually peered out their windows as they passed. Sakura had to remind herself that she was an intelligent girl and probably a more intelligent woman, so this date idea from the future had to be smart. Right, and not a total end to all her social standing in the city. Her embarrassment was slightly alleviated by Sasuke, who slunk along behind them, affecting, in that way cats had, that he just happened to be traveling to get ramen, and it was a complete coincidence that he sat down on Sakura's other side once they reached the stand. No one had invited him, of course, but inner Sakura cheered at the idea that it was almost like she was having a date with Sasuke. Hey, Tsuki. Naruto was bouncing on his seat as he wriggled his forehead protector at the man standing behind the counter. I'm on a date. Oh, the man's eyes traveled from Sakura, who was completely red-faced, to Sasuke, who stared straight ahead as if it were pure coincidence that he had chosen the seat right next to his teammates. Why don't you introduce them, Naruto? Oh yeah, Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. This is Sakura Haruno. She's the top kunoichi of our year and the smartest and prettiest person I know. And that's Uchiha Sasuke. Sakura interrupted before Naruto could say something that might cause Sasuke to get up and leave. He's also part of our team. Oh, your teammates. Tsuki smiled at them more broadly. Yeah, Team 7. We're the best team. Believe it. Naruto struck his famous pose and Sakura wilted a little inside. How was it possible for him to have so much energy? What had her future self been thinking? And Chuki Sakura's is on me. But not Tay. Naruto, it's okay. Sakura cut in again, I have money. Her mother had left her dinner money on the counter when she woke up this morning. It would be more than enough to buy a bowl of ramen. She was unprepared for when Naruto turned to her, eyes tragic. But Sakura-chan, you said it was a date. Sakura flushed and waved her hand quickly, more interested in preventing a flood of tears than in listening to what came out of her mouth. You can pay next time. Next time. The transformation was instantaneous. Suddenly, everything was all right in Naruto's world again, better in fact. His mood swings were giving Sakura emotional whiplash. All right, that's a plan. You're the best, Sakura-chan. The rest of the meal went smoothly. Naruto suggested the miso veggie ramen for her since he noticed that her lunches were mostly meatless at the academy. Sakura wasn't actually that fond of vegetables. It had been her attempt to win at the diet competition with Ino, but she wasn't about to admit that in front of Sasuke. Actually, it was sort of astounding how much attention Naruto had paid to her. Inhaling his ramen apparently didn't hinder his conversation skills because he happily alternated between regaling Chuki with stories of how awesome Sakura was from the academy, declaring that this was the best day ever, and shooting dirty looks at Sasuke, who ignored the entire one-sided conversation. Hey Sakura. Sakura glanced over from fishing the last bits of noodle from her bowl. What's your dreams? You never answered when Kakashi-sensei asked that first day. Sakura's mind went blank. Of course, her dream was to one day marry Sasuke, but she couldn't exactly say that when the boy who asked her on a date and offered to pay for her meal was staring at her with such bright eyes. Even inner Sakura knew better than that. She could feel Sasuke's glance over at her while she hesitated. I guess become the best kunoichi ever and beat Ino Pig once and for all. Behind her Sasuke grunted in what might, if she really wished it, be approval. In front of her, Naruto cheered excitedly and gave her a thumbs up. You can totally do it, Sakura-chan. Thanks. You can do it too. She replied automatically. You really think so? Belatedly, Sakura remembered that his dream was to become Hokage. But she had committed herself too far. Sure. You have lots of energy, she hazarded a guess, and you're really cheerful. That has to be useful for diplomacy. It was, essentially, a lie, but Naruto seemed to buy it wholeheartedly. He flushed and rubbed the back of his neck while laughing awkwardly. Well, I need to get going home. Sakura pulled out her purse and counted out the appropriate change before Naruto could protest. But he seemed to think that letting her pay for her ramen now meant another date in the future, so he just waved enthusiastically as she headed out. Sasuke stayed in his seat and only raised a hand as she walked home. Pity. She hoped he would walk her home. She had just stepped out of the shower when the telephone rang. Forehead, is it true? You went on a date with Naruto? Ino. Only one person called her forehead and kept such a close watch on the city gossip. Sakura winced as she shifted the phone over to her other ear. If Ino knew about the date, then everyone did. She sighed and hoped her future self knew what the hell she was doing. Sasuke was there too. She pointed out, it was more of a team dinner. Everyone is saying that it was a date. Naruto was basically screaming about it. Ino countered quickly, have you lost your mind? Are you giving up on Sasuke? For dead last. Don't call him that. Sakura protested. It might be true, but he was her teammate and had just spent the whole night praising her to the stars. Plus, Ino wasn't allowed to just say anything. But it's Sasuke. Ino drew out the first syllable into a disbelieving whine. He's gorgeous. He's also kind of rude. The blaspheme was out of her mouth before she could believe what she said. Ino made a sort of strangled gasp on the other end of the line. Well, it's true. He came along to dinner, uninvited. Didn't say a thing the entire time. He's too cool to talk. Sakura countered. She felt a bit queasy badmouthing her years-long crush, but she wasn't about to let Ino win this conversation. Plus, it was nice to be the more mature-sounding one for once. Or for basic human interaction. Ino huffed on the other end of the line. Whatever. I guess that means more for me, since I apparently won. Like hell you won, Ino pig. Sakura's fist slammed out into the wall before she could stop herself, inner Sakura cheering inside. I'll never lose to you. Big words for a big forehead. Ino paused at the sound of a distant mumble. Dad needs to use the phone. And you're invited to come to dinner tomorrow since your dad has to stay another few days at the hatchery. Fine. The Harunos and Yamanakas had been friends since before Ino and Sakura had been born. That friendship had continued even after their daughters had ended theirs. When Sakura's parents were away on missions, they often asked the Yamanakas to check in on her. Sakura had been expecting a call, but was surprised that Ino had made it. She probably wouldn't have, if she didn't need to confirm the gossip. Fine. See you tomorrow, forehead. Whatever, Ino pig. The phone clicked as Ino hung up and Sakura went to bed in a tumble of emotions. It hadn't been a bad night all in all. Hey, Sakura, want to go on another date tonight? Today, Naruto hadn't even waited for them to finish their mission in the afternoon. In fact, Sakura realized with a blink, he wasn't late at all to their meeting place on the bridge. Usually, she had to yell at him about the importance of punctuality. An ironic concern considering their sensei. Not tonight, Naruto drooped. Tomorrow, Naruto whooped. But I get to choose the place. Sure, he agreed happily, wherever you want as long as they have ramen. This morning they waited 3 hours for Kakashi-sensei to show up. Naruto had apparently decided that one date meant they were best friends. Instead of falling around and complaining of their sensei's lateness, he jumped around and asked her lots of questions. What was her favorite food? Anmitsu, favorite color? Either red or pink. If she could have any summons, what would she want? Something cute. What would she do if she was Hokage? Make sure Chunin with families spent more time at home. Did she notice any of his pranks at the academy? Yes, did she like any of his pranks? She liked that they weren't directed at her. And so on. It wasn't the worst conversation she ever had. He was obviously interested and his enthusiasm was contagious. After the first hour of trying to include Sasuke into their conversation and receiving only grunts in return, favorite color, favorite food, she gave up and just chatted with Naruto, who seemed ecstatic to be asked anything at all, even if she was just being polite. In addition to being apparently the most interesting person in the world, Naruto also thought she was the smartest. Hey, Sakura-chan. Why do we have to do such boring missions? I want to do something cool. They were walking back from yet another adventure of finding the Dayamo's cat with Naruto sporting a dozen scratches from where he tackled it. Sakura was about to snap that was a question he should ask Kakashi, but, of course, their sensei had wandered off somewhere to get lost in the strings of fate. They would find him leaning against the mission office like he had spent all afternoon with them instead of lazing around with his nose in his book. Because we're cheap labor that they're happy to exploit. Somewhere around the 100th question she had given up trying to sound cool or knowledgeable to impress Sasuke. Naruto seemed more interested that she was answering at all than if she was being sweet or feminine. As the day grew hotter and they had a harder time tracking down the damn cat, she began to bitch just like if she was with Ino. It was nice, so not cool. Naruto agreed. Idiots. They both froze and stared at the first non-necessary comment Sasuke had made all day, too surprised to be upset. He glanced at them and then at the sky as if amazed he was surrounded by such idiots. Finding the cat is practice for search and rescue missions. Sakura, is that true? I guess. Sakura thought about it for a moment. Actually, that makes sense. Tracking an animal is a bit harder than tracking a person, and we know we aren't going to run into missing nin around here, so it's really safe. Why didn't I think of that? She muttered to herself. Hey Sakura-chan, it's okay. Even that idiot has to be useful sometimes. Naruto gave her a cheerful thumbs up and she couldn't help but grin at him. Sasuke radiated smug superiority. I swear that cat has a jutsu on it to make it run away all the time, Ino laughed. We had to track him down last week. It does escape with stupid frequency. You would think the Daiomo's wife would just put a leash on it. Sakura agreed. They were laying on Ino's bed together for the first time in 3 years. It had been nice coming to the Yamanakas for dinner, like how she used to when she was younger. Maybe it was their conversation yesterday or that they were both graduated and on different teams, but there was a silent understanding that their long-standing rivalry was at a truce. Or a crossroads, Sakura reflected. Either way, it was nice to hang out with Ino again. I know. How do you guys capture it? We have it down to a science, Ino launched into her story without giving Sakura a chance to answer. Choji figured out that it loves salted salmon, so we set up a trap and wait. Sakura thought that was an appropriate tactic for the team with the laziest ninjas. How do you know where to set up the trap? It always goes to the same few places, haven't you noticed? She hadn't. So I use my jutsu to take over a random bird and fly around until I find it. Sometimes I have to dive bomb it to move it along. Then, once it finds the salmon, Shikamaru uses his jutsu to bind it. And done. Ino, who had been acting out the capture, flopped back onto the bed and grinned at Sakura. How do you guys do it? Well, Sakura drew herself up proudly. First, Naruto makes dozens of clones and they run all around looking for some sign of the beast. Then when he finds it he usually tries to grab it, the idiot, so he poofs. When we get to his last known position, Sasuke is able to track where it goes and then we find it pretty fast. What do you do? Ino asked curiously. Sakura hesitated, unsure of how to answer. She helped, obviously. She searched for clues along with the Naruto clones but she expected one of them to find it. And she looked for tracks, but Sasuke was so much better at that than her. I carry it back. It likes me, she added defensively, and scratches up Naruto if he gets too close. Ino raised her eyebrows but didn't voice the question of usefulness which was clearly on her mind. Instead, she changed the subject. Can you believe I almost missed the academy? She asked, stretching her arms over her head. Training in the morning, missions in the afternoon, and then mom still expects me to help out in the flower shop at night. And there was this huge request for all these yellow poppies, which are hard to find, at the opening of a new business. Why did you use yellow? Sakura asked absently, still thinking about her role in the capture of the stupid cat. For the success, obviously. That would be white. Ino rolled over, her face a mask of horror. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. White is for rejoicing. Yellow is for success. Other way around. Sakura frowned at her once, maybe, currently friend. Is not. Is too. Sakura protested. What are forget-me-nots? Eternal love. What do the 3 points of an ikebana arrangement represent? Heaven, earth, and man. Or sun, moon, and stars, Sakura countered smugly. Ino narrowed her eyes in good-humored challenge. My turn. What was the oldest school of flower arranging? Easy Ikonobo. Describe the Nagir style. The continued in this vein for another half-hour with Ino shouting a final question out the door as Sakura headed down the darkened street. On one hand, Sakura was pleased to have remembered as much about flowers as she did from her kunoichi classes. On the other, Ino Pig still knew more. Obviously, because her mother owned a flower shop and she grew up working in it. But still, it pissed her off. Hey, Sakura, have you decided where to go for our date tonight? Naruto ran up and flopped down beside her. What are you reading? Sakura looked up from her book and blinked at Naruto tiredly. She had stayed up late last night winning arguments against Ino in her head. Yes, she knew everything about flowers. No, she wasn't useless to her team. Yes, they needed her. It didn't matter how, they did, didn't they? Well, What does it matter that she doesn't know what she contributes? Or that their missions could be finished in the same time if she was there or not? Mental Eno was a lot more exhausting than real Eno. Oh, it's a book on flowers. Sakura hadn't found any answers to her worries this morning, but as she was heading out of the house she saw her old flower textbook in her bookshelf. She might not know how to be of more use to her team, but she could at least find some questions that might stump Eno next time she saw her. That's cool, Naruto said in a voice that indicated it very much wasn't. Why are you reading it? Because I am a useless kunoichi whose only strength is my intelligence, and I'm reassuring myself about my insecurities by overdeveloping that strength, seemed like a bit too heavy an answer to Naruto's innocent question. Because I am going to be the best kunoichi. She sort of lied, remembering their last conversation. Awesome, Naruto beamed at her. How are flowers going to help? Sakura looked at him askance, then remembered that the boys didn't attend the kunoichi classes. Flowers are really useful, Naruto. Really? How so? Honestly, Sakura was pretty sure that at least something on flowers were covered in the boys' classes, though Naruto was looking at her with a genuinely blank expression. Didn't you pay attention in class? You can use them to know what country you are in, for instance, if you get lost. Or what is food? Lots of flowers are used in poisons and you can send messages with them. The last part was her favorite. She daydreamed a lot about Sasuke walking up to her with a bouquet of flowers and giving her a small smile when she correctly read the message. It was the most romantic gesture. Poisons. Of course, Naruto focused on that. Sakura rolled her eyes but spent most of the morning answering his nearly endless questions about flowers, their arrangement, their poison, the antidotes. Sakura wasn't sure if Naruto had honestly never been taught or if he had never paid attention in class. Either way, he was asking good questions now, and under the cheerful interrogation, Sakura's fears faded. That was weird, Sakura muttered to herself as they were politely but firmly escorted out of the sweets shop and heard the door lock behind them. Sasuke grunted in what could possibly be agreement, possibly be allergies. Does that happen to you a lot? Naruto rubbed the back of his neck and laughed awkwardly. Sometimes. Sakura had wanted to try this place for ages, except that a sweet shop wasn't the place you went by yourself while on a diet. But it was the perfect place to bring an overly excited teammate who would be buying you the sweets. Or, maybe not, Sakura was reconsidering the application of sugar to Naruto. But when they walked in, the older woman behind the counter looked like she had swallowed a. Her mouth snapped shut as she saw Sasuke, once again uninvited, trail in after them. They were allowed to buy one thing, and as soon as the money exchanged hands were told the store was closing early. Sasuke had given them a dark look and stalked away. Ramen, Naruto suggested after he left. Sure, it wasn't like the ramen was bad, and at least the owner didn't glare at them as they walked down the street. Why did she look at you like that? I play a lot of pranks in this section of town, Naruto admitted. The shop owners don't really appreciate it. But you did, right, Sakura-chan? Like when I painted the Hokage's faces. I wouldn't say appreciate it. Sakura admitted. Aw, come on, Sakura-chan. Naruto protested. That prank took a lot of effort. After that comment, Sakura knew, logically, that she could turn and walk away down the street after Sasuke. She knew that she didn't have to stay and listen while Naruto explained step by step the preparation, execution, and results of his top pranks in Konoha. She knew that the next day Naruto would show up beaming and asking for another date as if she hadn't ditched him. She knew that, but she stayed anyways. It wasn't like she had anyone else to talk to at home. Yeah, that was it. It certainly wasn't, because after 3 days of actually talking to Naruto rather than hitting him or ignoring him, he proved to be sort of, almost, okay. It was for the sake of the team, really. Yeah, those were good reasons. Wait, she said after a lull in the description of how he had switched all the names of the bathrooms in the school. Why did you do that? Because it would be really funny, Sakura-chan. You should have seen Kiba's face. No, she waved her chopsticks at him. Why do you prank at all? There was a silence that stretched out as Naruto thought about it. Eventually, I don't know. It's fun. Getting chased by Anbu, yelled at by teachers, and glared at by shop owners is fun. Well, not that part, Sakura-chan, he admitted. But the rest of it? Sakura didn't push the question further that night. For the rest of the evening, they chatted about simple things. The D-rank missions they had been running, so boring, where Kakashi could possibly be hiding, in a porn store, still asleep, maybe he really did get lost, and how long it should take for them to run an awesome mission. Yesterday for Naruto, probably another few months for Sakura. That night Sakura received a message that her father would be home tomorrow afternoon, no exceptions, and that her mother had reached the border patrol headquarters. She wouldn't hear from her mother for another 2 weeks at the least, but she sighed in relief to know her mother made it there safely. Then, she called Ino. Forehead, what's up? It had been years since Sakura had picked up the phone to call Ino. She had fretted about it, honestly, wondering if dinner and bickering was enough to heal a 3-year-long break in their relationship. It seemed, bizarrely, that it did. Sakura would have thought twice about taking a call from Ino if she had been in her place. Hey Ino pig. Sakura glanced down at the list of questions she had drawn up based on her conversation with Naruto that morning. Maybe she should ask how Ino's day had been. Nah. What school did Sofu Teshigahara found? Ooh. Ino's voice lit up in amusement. You want a rematch? Guess you like the taste of defeat. You're on. Forehead. Sakura could almost hear Ino's knuckles cracking and she grinned. They only managed 15 minutes of rapid-fire question and answer, where Sakura, with the aid of her questions and prepped by Naruto's vast ignorance, managed to stump Ino 5 times, when Ino's dad yelled at her to get off the phone. Apparently, the line needed to be kept open in case someone called him into work and the batteries didn't last forever. Fine. Sakura could imagine Ino rolling her eyes. Look. You had an unfair advantage, because I didn't know you were going to ask all this. A ninja is always prepared for an ambush. Sakura recited with mock superiority. And maybe a little true superiority. Whatever. Forehead. Look. In 2 days, Team 10 is grabbing dinner at the barbecue place on the corner of A Street. Come by and eat with us and we'll settle this once and for all. I don't know. Sakura had eaten out the past 2 nights and was worried about her budget. Oh come on. Ino pleaded. It's Shikamaru and Choji and I'm tired of being the only girl and they never want to discuss anything fun. Okay. Sakura relented. She could never resist Ino's pleading, which undoubtedly led to the friction in their friendship. But, it had been a few weeks since she had seen any of her classmates outside of Team 7 and Ino. She missed being in class with everyone. Awesome. See you then. Prepare to go down. Forehead. You wish. Ino pig. The next morning Naruto showed up with flowers. Hey Sakura-chan. He grinned hugely at her. Look what I found. Found might be of an understatement, because she was pretty sure that those orange and pink irises didn't grow anywhere but the Yamanaka backyard and that the purple orchids were native to the Forest of Death and Naruto. Did you touch those? Sakura was on her feet in an instant, the books she had brought to study falling to the ground. The bouquet of flowers fell to the ground as she grabbed Naruto's palms, turning them over to see the small red welts already rising. You idiot. She smacked him on the head. What were you thinking? Konoha day lilies are poisonous on contact. What? Naruto seemed genuinely shocked, but they were in your book of flowers. In the section about poisons. The red welts were getting bigger and Sakura had no idea how Naruto had managed to make it all the way here without noticing the pain. Luckily, the Konoha day lily was non-lethal. The simple antidote pill in the Genin standard issue med pack would be fine to tame the reaction. Sakura dug into her day pack, only to realize. Oh crap, she stared down at the empty pack and a very clear vision filled her mind. Her med pack, laying on her bed, ready to be repacked after she fit her books on flowers, then looking at the clock and realizing she would be late. Am I going to die? Naruto was jumping up and down and waving his arms around as though he could shake off the rash. Naruto, do you have your med pack? What's a med pack? What do you mean what's a med pack? Here. A med pack was shoved in her arms and Sakura hastily took out the packet of basic antidote pills. Snapping them into her palm, she pulled Naruto into a headlock and shoved the pills into his mouth. Swallow, she commanded, and he did. Sakura let out a breath of relief. Am I going to die? No, idiot. She smacked him on the head again and let go. Unless you ate some of the root. She looked at him, because there were some things she expected of the normal Konoha citizen that didn't extend to Naruto. But he shook his head and she relaxed further. The root, she continued, grabbing a roll of bandages from the med box, is lethal if ingested within 4 hours, even more so if it is concocted into a tincture with the vine of the fireleaf. But the antidote is pretty common, so it's not a favored assassination poison. Take your jacket off. So I'm not going to die, Naruto repeated, shrugging off his bright orange jacket. Underneath he had a much more ninja-appropriate black shirt. Good, that would have been embarrassing. The next Hokage can't die because of hay, he protested as she grabbed his arm and began to wrap the bandage around his forearm. They had all learned basic first aid at the academy, but Sakura could never remember if you went clockwise around the arm or counterclockwise. No, the Konoha day lily only caused welts, irritation, and pain with dermal contact. Sakura recited, but you can rub the oils onto other people or parts of yourself, which is one of the reasons She was cut off as Sasuke rudely snatched the roll of bandages from her and unrolled all her work. Sakura flushed. Well, why Sasuke is bandaging your hands? She concluded lamely. Admittedly it wasn't her best bandaging job, but Sasuke went much quicker and neater. He even knew how to bandage the palm and fingers, so Naruto had full range of motion. What's the other reason? Naruto examined his bandaged hands with fascination. The pain, Sakura said bluntly. Didn't you notice? Naruto laughed weakly and then cried out as Sasuke released the seals on the bandages. Oh gross, why did they get all wet? That's the medication, Sakura snapped, to prevent infection and scarring. Huh, Naruto considered his fingers again. I've never scared before. Really? Never. You should have a medical pack. Sasuke interrupted the conversation. Sakura was surprised to see that he was looking at both of them and hadn't retreated to the far end of the bridge like he normally did during their conversations. When his dark eyes fixed on her, it was her turn to laugh awkwardly. I'll remember next time. Sasuke dismissed her without another glance. Hey Sakura, where do you get one? They handed them out at the academy, Sasuke answered for her, picking his own up. You refill them at any shinobi clinic. Oh, and if, I never got one. Sakura took this to mean he had lost his somewhere and rolled her eyes. Sasuke clearly agreed with her because he turned from them with a muttered, "Tch," and retreated to sulk in silence. He tolerated their presence for the rest of the day, at least that was how Sakura interpreted his curt answers to direct questions, refusal to join in her and Naruto's rambling conversations, and tendency to stand at least 3 feet further away than social custom dictated. While she lectured Naruto on the uses of the flowers he had picked and their dangers, Sasuke perched on the edge of the river and stared 1,000 miles away. But he did check on Naruto's bandages once that afternoon after they were hired to clear a field for a lazy famer, strength training, she told Naruto, and he stopped complaining as much. They finished later than she wanted, mostly because Naruto wasn't allowed to do too much work with his hands in bandages, and she had her backpack on and was heading towards the village before Naruto could ask his now traditional question. Hey Sakura-chan, want to go on a date? Not tonight, Naruto. His face fell and she continued, my dad just returned from his latest assignment and I want to spend some time with him. Oh, she was expecting more of a scene, honestly. But Naruto just smiled at her. That sounds nice. Have fun. Oh okay, have a good night. Careful with your hands, she called back over her shoulder as she began to speed back to the village. The next day Naruto brought another bouquet of flowers, noticeably missing the Konoha day lilies, and Sasuke brought med kits. Both flowers and kid were shoved into her arms with differing levels of enthusiasm, and Sakura went from feeling empty-handed to overburdened. Damn it, Sasuke, inner Sakura thought uncharitably, I brought my med kit with me today. Don't treat me on the same level as that idiot. Said idiot was squatting on the ground examining the contents with excitement usually reserved for birthdays. The last time she had seen him that happy was when she had agreed to the first date. Wow, hey Sakura-chan, look. It's the bandages Tem used on my arms. And the pills you gave me. He waved a yellow packet and the bandages in the air excitedly. Those are pain relievers, she corrected, shifting the flowers and med pack to her other arm. The antidote pills are in the packet marked in green. How are your arms today? Totally good. Naruto pushed his jacket sleeves up and waved his unblemished arms in the air. Huh, Sakura thought, they must have caught the rash early on enough. Usually, it left marks for at least 3 days. So green is the poison. Antidote. Yeah, antidote for plants, which is why it's green. Yellow is for. He tapped his chin, like when you get bruises and they turn yellow and you know they're almost not painful, so yellow is for pain. Sure, that seemed an overly complicated way to remember the basic medical categories, but if it worked for Naruto. After the lecture yesterday, she realized that Naruto had a unique way of looking at and remembering the world. You had to be really patient and let him compartmentalize the information at his own pace. And the blue, for chakra exhaustion, they both looked over to where Sasuke was loitering a few feet away. Sakura wasn't positive, but she thought he might be watching them out of the corner of his eye as opposed to ignoring them completely. Suddenly, she flushed. "Aw, thank you very much for the med kits, Sasuke." She smiled. Naruto was still rooting around in the kid when she reached out and smacked him on the head. He yelped and clutched his crown. "Say thank you, Naruto," she hissed. Thanks." He rolled his eyes and pouted, but quickly went back to unpacking the kit. Okay, blue for chakra, because in the diagrams it's always blue looking. Yellow for pain relief. Green for antidote. Red for. He scrunched up his face trying to read. Infection. Sakura sat down and laid the flowers down carefully. Naruto, have you really never seen a med kit before? I've seen one, he protested, just, not the inside of one. But they gave them out after the first aid test. She protested, you know, when you went in, showed the instructor that you knew how to bandage an arm, received your first med kit. He laughed and rubbed the back of his head. Sakura was learning that was his tell for embarrassment, must have failed that one, then. You couldn't have failed it. Sasuke spoke up, he looked irritated, but refused to say anything else, even when they both waited. Oh well, hey Sakura, these are the bandages Tem used on me, right? Right. Nope. Those are regular bandages. She leaned forward and plucked a different roll, covered in delicate seal work. These are the ones he used. The ones you are holding are good for anything that is bleeding, but these ones are good for burns, bites, anything with inflammation and irritation. Oh, so if. They spent the rest of the morning going through the med kit. Sakura explained what each of the items were and how to use them, quizzing Naruto until he knew every item perfectly. It was one thing not to be aware what different flowers did, but not knowing what was in his med kit could be the difference between life and death on the battlefield. Sasuke was actually talkative, by which she meant he made no less than 5 separate, unprompted comments about the medical supplies and stood only 2 feet away as opposed to his normal 4. He knew a lot of first aid and even some more advanced medical practices. When Kakashi showed up around noon, Sakura was almost confident enough to let Naruto give her first aid on the battlefield, though she would, of course, prefer Sasuke's help. Their sensei raised his visible eyebrow at the scattering of flowers and first aid equipment, but didn't comment further. Their mission that afternoon was a shopping list from one of the high-end hotels in Konoha. They could have split up and each tackled a third of the list, but Sakura remembered the way the sweets store owner looked at Naruto. They wouldn't go faster if Naruto wasn't allowed to buy the things on his list, and it seemed unfair to leave Naruto with the day off or force Sasuke to buy things on his own. So Sakura suggested they all shop together. Hey Sakura, what's the point of this mission? They were standing outside of a green grocer's that Naruto seemed pretty reluctant to enter. So Sakura had stayed outside under the guise of quizzing him on more first aid. Well, she thought about it. Her first instinct was to complain that the hotel was just too lazy to send their own workers, but Sasuke's comment from a few days ago made her think. It could be used for espionage. Like if you know what sort of things a hotel needs, you could sneak poison into their favorite supplier's soap brand. Or send messages in their flower arrangements. Right, that's right. They had spent a long time at the florist's as Naruto wanted to know the meaning of every flower and arrangement they saw. She finally had to explain to him that civilians weren't actually sending coded messages every time they went to pick up a bouquet. It was more of a shinobi thing. You're really smart, Sakura-chan. Naruto grinned at her. You know everything. And you're a better teacher than any of them at the academy. Except Iruka-sensei maybe. But still, I've learned so much more this past week than I ever did at school. Are you sure it's not just because you're paying attention? She teased. If you had focused during class, I wouldn't need to go over this all with you. He laughed and stretched his arms over his head. Yeah. It's more fun with just you, Sakura-chan. You don't get as angry when I'm being dumb. Hey, do you want to go on a date tonight? Not tonight, I'm meeting Ino and her team for dinner. What? Naruto's face fell comically. But you were busy last night too. I thought we would go on a date tonight. Tomorrow, she promised. Wow, back at the academy her social calendar was never this full. Now she had people actually competing for her time. It was nice. Okay, Naruto sounded barely appeased, but he brightened when Sasuke came out with a basket of fresh fruit. Hey, Sakura's busy tonight, do you want to? No. Sasuke turned and headed down the street. Naruto picked up the other bags. He had been sending shadow clones back to the hotel with their purchases all afternoon and hurried after him. Sakura soon left too. Had that been a flare of jealousy when Naruto invited Sasuke to do something without her? She was glad Sasuke refused. Her thoughts were broken by an apple flying towards her face. She caught it without thinking, academy instincts kicking in. Glancing up in surprise, she saw Naruto was holding an apple with an equally surprised look on his face. Lunch. Sasuke grunted, and turned on his heel to march back to the hotel. When Sakura arrived at the restaurant, Ino was already seated, bent over something on her lap. Well, she was running a little late. She had wanted to run home and drop off her flowers from Naruto in a vase in her med kit from Sasuke in her supply drawer. The apple, also from Sasuke, was already eaten. Hey Ino, Shikamaru, Choji Ino-sensei. Sakura waved. Ino looked up quickly and just as quickly slammed a book shut under the table. Shikamaru glanced from the book to Sakura and raised his eyebrows in understanding. Then no doubt decided another girl was troublesome and shifted his attention back outside after a grunt of greeting. Sakura. Ino bounced up and gave her a hug. This is Asuma Soritobi, sensei of Team 10. Sakura bowed low before him. It is a pleasure to meet you, Soritobi-sensei. He seemed amused by her presence, glancing back and forth between her and Ino. How long have you two been friends? Sakura hesitated as she took her seat across from Ino and next to Choji. How to answer that question? Were they friends now? Luckily, Ino was quick to answer. Oh, for years. Our parents knew each other growing up. She's like a sister to me. And what flower means sisterhood? Sakura-chan. Ino's sweet smile quickly fell from her face as Sakura answered immediately. Twin pansies of the valley. Do you know how to differential diagnose poisoning from the Konoha day lily from the forest spider orchid? No. Ino narrowed her eyes playfully as Sakura held up one finger. Point for her. Do you know? Asuma cut in easily. Answer the question for us, Sakura. Oh, Well, she blinked. For a moment she had almost forgotten that the others were at the table. Shikamaru was giving them a long, annoyed look while Choji was complacently laying out meat on the grill. Both produce rashes with dermal contact, but the lily has small, red welts while the orchid has lines of irritation that extend along the chakra lines. Asuma nodded in agreement and gestured for Ino to ask her question. Dinner continued in that vein. Choji and Shikamaru were content to sit and watch the battle of information, while Asuma acted as referee. He insisted that each question asked had to be answered in full and would often cut in to ask follow-up questions that were surprisingly difficult to answer. Did Sakura know what clan had first developed Midnight Roses and what jutsu they were said to aid? No. Could Ino explain how the annual Peach Blossom Festival in the Fire Country capital affected trade relations with the Water Nation? Badly. Who knew what the Fire Daimo's favorite concubine's favorite flower? Wait, I thought he was married. By the end of the dinner, Sakura's belly was full and her head was empty. She felt like she had sat for her academy finals all over again. From the tension in Ino's brow, she felt the same way too. Even the boys looked exhausted from listening. Only Asuma was in good spirits. This was fun. He grinned as they all shot him dirty looks. Shikamaru, who won? Shikamaru muttered something suspiciously like, troublesome, under his breath, but closed his eyes to think. For the basic questions, Ino got 8 more right than Sakura, but Sakura was able to give more articulate answers for the broader-ranging ones. And Choji, when I asked about the ethics of flower cultivation in the Rock Country Mountains, who gave a more persuasive argument. The larger boy frowned as he tried to remember. Sakura discussed the economics. He asked uncertainly and seemed more emboldened when Asuma nodded, which made a good point about needing money to put food on the table, but Ino seemed more right about the use of child labor in the dangerous mountains. Ino sent Sakura a triumphant look. Are you saying that just because Ino is your teammate? Asuma asked mildly. The glare Ino sent him seemed to indicate that if that hadn't been his reason, it ought to be it now. Choji hesitated again and then straightened. No, it really does seem wrong to send children out where they might get hurt. In the First Shinobi War, more than 40% of the casualties were children younger than you. Asuma remarked, let's discuss that at our next dinner in 3 days. When he saw his team was hesitating, he grinned. My treat. Sakura, come by if you can. Sakura nodded. The dinner was exhausting, but this was also the most thinking she had had to do since the academy. It was nice to be challenged. All she was supposed to pick up was juice for her dad. Instead, she ended up staggering back to her house, loaded down with groceries, frozen goods, and sweets. It had started out simply enough. As she was walking past the home goods section, she stopped to see the promotion on bento boxes. They were cheap, plastic ones, but they were brightly colored and cutely shaped. Sakura passed over the pink one with cherry blossoms, name and hair aside. She wasn't wild about the Sakura motifs, found a cute red one with maple leaves and then stopped. Because there was a bright orange one the same shade as Naruto's ridiculous jumpsuit. He'd get a kick out of it. She paused and then realized giving something to Naruto without giving something to Sasuke would be sort of rude. And the sale was 3 for the price of 2. After all, Naruto had gotten hives collecting flowers for her and Sasuke had brought her a med kit even if she already had one. It would only be polite to give her teammate a little present in return. She ended up buying the red one for her, the orange one for Naruto, and a dark blue one for Sasuke. And then ended up buying rice, seaweed, frozen dumplings, frozen soybeans, frozen meatballs. Hey, she never said she was a good cook, and cooking everything from scratch took too long. Her father laughed when he saw her stagger through the doorway, burdened with the purchases of the last of her pocket change. Then he laughed louder when she explained why she needed 3 bags of rice and 2 bags of dumplings, and no, she wasn't stopping her diet, she was just being nice. And dad? Oh my gosh, she didn't have a crush. Sakura, you're late, are you okay? Naruto waved at her as Sakura ran the rest of the way towards their meeting place. It was funny, she reflected as she caught her breath, that they still met at the same place at the same time every day, even if Kakashi never required it and never arrived on time. Yeah, fine, just out of breath from running all the way from her house. Was she getting out of shape? No, it was because in addition to her pack, her med kit, her book on the First Shinobi War, she was carrying 3 bentos stuffed with food. Just running late. You're never late, Naruto said with concern. Are you sick? Huh, should you be in bed? Sasuke, get over here. Is she sick? Is she hurt? Do you feel hot, Sakura-chan? Naruto's questions, she was used to. Sasuke moving over to stare at her inquiringly, or suspiciously, she couldn't tell, she was not. I'm fine, I just didn't realize how long it took to cook rice. She thought she had set the rice cooker for 30 minutes instead of 45. She pulled the 2 bentos out of her bag with a flourish. I made these for you. Please enjoy them. Sasuke and Naruto took their bentos without a word and, almost simultaneously, peeked inside. That was another reason she was late. She had spent way too much time trying to make the divisions cute and professional until she looked at the clock and realized she needed to go. Nervous, she watched their expressions. Sasuke had gone quiet and still, well, stiller than he normally was. It was, of course, impossible to read his expression. Naruto on the other hand had gone suspiciously quiet, and that worried Sakura far more. I know they aren't much, just some things I had on hand. Sakura-chan. Naruto looked like he was about to burst out crying. This is the nicest thing anyone has ever done for me. What? Sakura knew that wasn't true. He had told her the story of how he received his forehead protector after all. Itadakimasu. Naruto clapped his hands over the bento. Naruto. That's for lunch. But it was too late. He was already scarfing down the food like he had never eaten before in his life. Thanks. She looked at Sasuke in surprise and then immediately flushed. This was the first time he had ever thanked her for anything. Oh, it's no problem. We're just working so hard. And I saw the boxes on sale. And we need to keep up our strength if we're going to be ninjas. She realized she was babbling and promptly sat down and pulled her book out of her bag. Hey Sakura-chan, what are we learning about today? Naruto seemed even more excited after finishing the entire bento box. Sakura looked up from the book. You know you always bring something cool to talk about. The flowers. The med box. Poisons. Naruto checked them off on his fingers. We should call you Sakura-sensei. Sakura-senpai, maybe. She grinned. She hadn't thought of her now daily lectures as a class. It had just been Naruto asking so many questions and her enjoying showing off her knowledge. She held up her book. This is a book on the First Shinobi War. Naruto groaned and fell over. No. Boring. Teach us something cool, Sakura-senpai-chan, like a jutsu. I know all the same jutsus you do, Naruto. And history is important, for beating Ino at least. But it's so boring. Naruto's face a mask of despair. Not important, like fighting. Jutsus. I need cool jutsus to become the Hokage. Sakura was about to yell at him for being an idiot when she paused. Naruto wasn't, really, an idiot. He just took a different way of looking at things. Naruto, imagine you had 2 kunai. And one was dull and off balance, while the other was sharp and well balanced. Naruto nodded seriously, face squished in concentration of his imagining. It's better to have a sharp, well-balanced kunai, but if you don't know how to throw it, it's not much use, right? You could cut someone, but you'd still want a sharp one, right? Sakura nodded. Your ninja skill is like the kunai, but your ninja knowledge is like your aim. Or knowing where to cut someone to stop them. So, Naruto scrunched his nose. It doesn't matter if you have a dull kunai, because if you know how to aim, you can still win. Yeah. Sakura hadn't quite thought of it like that. Hey Sakura, so if I have dull kunai, will you show me how to aim right? Of course, Naruto. Sakura grinned at him. Ino was wrong. She did have a place on this team, we're a team. Yeah, then that means that Sasuke is like the kunai polish, right? Because he keeps us sharp and clean. Dobi. I'm a shuriken. Wah. Kunai are better than shuriken, right Sakura? Right, not a Fuma shuriken. The analogy had clearly escaped them. Sakura sighed, then leaned forward and smacked first Naruto, then Sasuke with the book. Both shut up and looked at her stunned. Sakura felt stunned. She had never hit Sasuke before. You're a kunai, she pointed to Naruto, and you're a shuriken, she pointed to Sasuke. Both are important to me, she pointed to herself, who is going to learn to aim you the best. Got it Sakura-chan. Naruto saluted. But it almost sounded like a happy grunt. Good. Sakura nodded and let out a breath. Now, you Naruto, who was the first Hokage? Hidden in the foliage at the edge of the clearing, Kakashi returned to his book. He had begun to watch his students and was pleased, but surprised, at the dynamics developing. Never had he expected Sakura to take a leadership role on his team. Support, maybe, with her obsession with Sasuke and disdain for Naruto. But apparently she was clever enough to capitalize on Naruto's affections and turn those towards learning, and subtle enough to know Sasuke would shy from all overt overtures. Clearly, his plan of making them wait was working brilliantly. Her days quickly fell into a routine of sorts, though she had never felt so busy or challenged in her life. In the early morning, she would wake early and prepare bentos for her team. When Choji had heard her cooking regime, he had lent her some of his bento cookbooks. Sakura had paged through them and been shocked when she saw the level of preparation needed for each meal. Apples cut to look like bunnies she could do. Carrots carved into elaborate roses was too much. By mid-morning she had met up with Naruto and Sasuke at the bridge. They helped her prep for whatever upcoming debate with Team 10 she had. Some subjects like medicine, clan systems, and shinobi values, Sasuke would participate in, going so far as to even lecture. In others, such as history, geopolitical developments, and technology, he was as ignorant as Naruto. After they had finished their bentos, Kakashi-sensei would appear and they would complete a mission. She, Naruto, and occasionally Sasuke, had started a game to see how many different ninja skills they could fit into each mission. Were they shopping? Well, could they shop invisibly? Could clones shop for them? Could they use interrogation techniques to charm the shop owners into giving them better prices? Were they clearing a field or digging a ditch? What if they only used jutsu to get rid of weeds? Or only their left hands? Or the games continued. Evenings were spent debating with Team 10, spending time with her parents if they were in town or the Yamanakas, or going on dates with Naruto. Dates with Naruto, she quickly realized, were really just excuses to hang out. When she put her foot down at going to ramen again, Naruto decided to show her all his favorite places in Konoha. They watched the sun set from the top of the Hokage's monument. They wandered the city for hours, people watching and chatting. They went swimming in the eastern river in the forest and caught frogs. It was, Sakura mused, nibbling on the last of her dango, more like spending time with a friend or a brother than a date. Naruto never tried to be romantic. Outside of the bouquets he brought when she was studying flowers, he never brought her presents, no chocolates or stuffed animals, though her romance books insisted those were necessary gifts. He didn't even try to kiss her. Actually, she realized, he didn't try to do anything. Not a kiss, not hand-holding, not even a hug. For such an affectionate boy, and he was very hands-off. Sakura scratched her nose, frowning as she tried to remember Asuma-sensei's comments on childhood psychological development and how that might affect the lessons at the academy. Something about internalizing neglect. Naruto, she finally asked, you grew up in an orphanage, right? Right. Naruto beamed at her, but then Grandpa Hokage got me my own apartment. It's awesome. I have my own fridge, my own stove, my own. What was the orphanage like? Naruto didn't mind interruptions. It was the act of talking more than any particular subject that he enjoyed. It was sort of cramped. There were a lot of kids more than any other time before, I remember the nurses saying. The food was super boring, no ramen. Why Sakura-chan? She hesitated. It seemed awkward to come right out and ask if he had ever been hugged by any of the caretakers. Did you have any friends? Naruto gave an awkward chuckle which meant he was hiding some emotion. Not really. I pulled a lot of pranks. You remember the one with the newts and the milk I told you about? And yeah. The caretakers didn't like me much and, he sort of trailed off, but then beamed at her. It doesn't matter now though. Because I've got you and Iruka-sensei, and even the Tem isn't bad all the time. Hey, what sort of mission do you think we'll do tomorrow? Sakura wasn't about to be put off so easily. Naruto, why did you pull pranks though? The more she knew of Naruto, the more she wondered. It was true he had a mischievous nature, but he had treated her with nothing but sweetness. She hadn't once found a frog in her bag or her water bottle poured over her or even been teased for her forehead. And she didn't understand why what sounded like innocent and simple pranks would have Naruto barred from certain shops. Surely someone had seen the real Naruto. Naruto looked like he was considering the question with great concentration. Maybe he was trying to employ some of the shinobi mental tricks Sakura had been teaching him about knowing your own mind. A clear mind was an intangible target, as the teachings went. I guess, because people noticed me. After they pranks, they looked at me. Sakura commented stupidly, do you want my last dango? I'm full. Naruto looked relieved that the conversation had moved on, but Sakura's mind still gnawed at the problem. So it wasn't that Naruto played a prank and then people were mad at him. It was that people ignored him. He acted out to gain attention, people were angry, he had attention, and the vicious cycle continued. But what could cause a caretaker to ignore a little kid? A little orphan kid? Sakura didn't know, but it made her angry, and that anger prompted her to try something she normally would have laughed off, friends or no, that she was with Naruto. As they came to the intersection where they parted ways, Naruto to his apartment and Sakura to her home, she paused and looked at him. She could just turn and walk back. Wave him a goodbye as normal. No one would blame her. Sakura, oh Hokage, why was this so difficult? Naruto, do you want a hug? She extended her arms half-heartedly in invitation, a flush hot on her cheeks. What was with her? She hugged Ino all the time. Her parents whenever she saw them. She had no reason to feel embarrassed for asking for a hug from her teammate. He could always say no. Oof. The air rushed out her lungs in a gust as Naruto all but threw himself at her. His arms wrapped around her so tightly that she thought her ribs were going to crack. And was he crying? Naruto, has she hurt him? Had one of her kunai escaped her pouch and he accidentally impaled himself on it? Sakura, you're so nice. Oh, he was fine. Just emotional. Sakura let out what little breath she had and then patted him on the back. He hadn't relaxed his grip at all. When I am Hokage, you are going to be my chief diplomat and talk to all the other nations and make them love you, and then we won't ever have a war again. Okay. Sakura hadn't thought about careers that far ahead. But she suspected that if Naruto ever became Hokage, they would have a chance to discuss it then. Hey, but Sakura. He straightened and then rubbed his cheeks roughly. Sakura's ribs creaked as she took a discreet breath. You don't need to worry about me. Sakura looked up quickly, but Naruto wasn't looking at her. His head was tilted back like he was looking at the stars. I know I didn't have friends growing up or a family or anything, but I'm good now. Like I said, I've got you and Tem as friends, Iruka-sensei as family. I'm really happy. He turned to beam at her and Sakura was struck by his insight. Naruto really did surprise her. Yeah, okay, she agreed. See you tomorrow, he asked, and she agreed, though the worry about why Naruto had been so abandoned still niggled at the back of her mind. 0x0x0x0x0. Knock, knock, knock. Sakura, honey, So warm, so comfortable. She had been up too late reading up on history and now was so pleasantly comfortable in her bed, with the sun warm on her face. Wait a minute. The sun. Sakura, did you get a day off of training? Her father rapped on the door again, but Sakura's eyes were already wide with horror. Late. She was late. She was really, really late. No, 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 she muttered. Never had she flown out of bed so quickly, thrown on her dress so quickly, rushed past her dad so quickly. I'll take that as a no. He laughed and followed her to the bathroom. Sakura, will you be all right if I'm away for a few days? Sakura, trying to brush her teeth and her hair at the same time, gave him a confused look. MRGHs, she asked. It's Yoko, her father admitted. It's almost that day and, well, she isn't doing so well. And with Toru sent on the bodyguard mission. His voice trailed off. Yoko and Toru were her father's genin teammates and practically her aunt and uncle. When she was younger, she was confused at how her father could be married to her mother but devoted to these two other people. But now, she spat out a mouthful of toothpaste and thought about Naruto and Sasuke. How would it feel in 5, 10 years, not to spend time with them? It's fine, she told her father with real sincerity, take as much time as you need. You can bring Yoko over, she offered, though there was something about the green-eyed woman and her obsessive checking of her Senbon that put Sakura on edge. Her father shook her head, it's better if Yoko stays in familiar surroundings. You remember where her apartment is? If you need me, for anything, I'm still in Konoha. She gave her father a quick hug and then saw the clock from behind his shoulder. Late, I'll see you later. Say goodbye before you're sent back to the hatchery. She called back to him as she raced for the door. No time to make bentos. She would just have to apologize and offer to buy lunch or something. Naruto was waiting at the bridge with Sasuke nowhere in sight. Sakura-chan. His normally happy face was pulled into a grave expression as he ran towards her. Are you okay? Huh? She frowned at him. Yes. Oh, I forgot to set my alarm. Sorry I'm late. Naruto let out a noticeable sigh of relief, then brightened. I knew you would be okay. But then Sasuke-tem started freaking out because you were 5 minutes late and wouldn't calm down. What? Sakura might have been flattered if she wasn't so confused. I was at home. Where is he now? Out looking for you. And he didn't check my house. Naruto shrugged, then brightened. Hey, Sakura-chan, I was thinking about last night and, Sakura immediately regretted everything that happened last night. Do you think you could? He held out his arms and grinned embarrassedly. Could I have another hug? Sakura melted. Naruto, you don't need to ask for a hug. She wrapped her arms around his shoulders and squeezed. We're friends now, you can just give me a hug whenever. She really, really, really hoped she wouldn't come to regret those words. Really? Naruto shouted, stepping back. Sakura, you're late. Sasuke jumped down out of the tree followed by another Naruto. Sasuke reached out and smacked the Naruto that was following him. It puffed away in a cloud of smoke. A clone. If she was still at her academy understanding of Sasuke, the one where he was so cool, so gorgeous, so perfect, so awesome, she would have missed the subtle tightening around his eyes, the hardness at his jaws. But now, after nearly a month of observing him nearly every day, she could see the small emotional tells. He was upset, and, scared, maybe she was reading that wrong. Where were you? He stalked up to her, eyes still tight. Oh, I forgot to set my alarm and woke up late. I'm very sorry to make you worry. I wasn't worried. Sakura glanced over the tight shoulders, the hands balled in his pants, the look that could burn a hole through a kunai, right? She agreed. Well, if you're ever worried in the future, you could try checking, oh I don't know, my house first. TCH. Sasuke turned on his heel but didn't quite stalk away. Still watching him out of the corner of her eye, she turned back to Naruto. Why did Sasuke have a clone of you with him? Oh, Naruto quickly made a clone who led her away to the side. Naruto jogged over to where Sasuke was standing. Tell him something and then disperse him. Okay. This is really neat. Sakura hesitated and then leaned forward. I'm really sorry but I forgot lunches as well today. We can get ramen, my treat. She dispersed the clone with a quick punch and heard Naruto whoop. Really? Sakura, you're going to buy us ramen for lunch? Sakura blinked. Didn't she speak quietly enough to not be overheard? What happened? Naruto jogged over to her, grinning. It's cool, right? Anything you tell my clone, when it's popped, I can hear. But only if I'm paying really close attention. Whoa. Sakura breathed, thinking back over the dinner she spent arguing about shinobi tactics on the battlefield. They all agreed, eventually, that lack of communication led to the biggest problems. Ino's family was an important asset, but that level of jutsu was seriously draining. If everyone had a clone, what could that mean? Right, but you mean it's Sakura. Ramen, oh yeah, Sakura snapped out of her planning stage, it's only fair considering I forgot your lunches today. I'll make some tomorrow. Don't worry don't bother. Sasuke cut in. He was once again standing close enough to actually be considered normal. Sakura felt almost a little crowded. What? Don't bother. You clearly can't manage your time well. It makes sense to remove a non-essential task. Hey, Sakura felt a little stung by the accusation. Sure, she had been busy juggling her extra studying, bentos, missions, and everything, but still. If you didn't like them, I'll do it. Bwahaha. Naruto burst out laughing. Sasuke cook. Like a girl. Naruto. At least, I am offering to help, Dobi. What? I help? Have you considered how busy Sakura is cooking for you, teaching you, wasting her time with you on those? Hey, she's not wasting time. She's my friend. What sort of friend forces their friend to carry their dead weight? Stop. Both boys stopped bickering at her scream. Sakura took a deep breath and resisted the urge punch them both in the face. It would feel so good, inner Sakura told her, one punch. But it wouldn't help. Sasuke. She turned on the dark-haired boy and narrowed her eyes. I am not wasting my time with Naruto. He's my friend. I like spending time with him. Yeah, Tem. Naruto stuck his tongue out at Sasuke. Shut up, Naruto. He flinched and she turned back to Sasuke. I am also a ninja. I can decide what to do with my time and who to spend it with, and I do not need a minder. A small part of herself protested at this. Of course she needed Sasuke as a minder, someone to protect her and love her and sweep her off her feet. Sakura ignored this part of her firmly. But, she drew herself up and took another breath. You are also right. I was spreading myself too thin. But Sakura, Naruto protested, looking worried. You only missed your alarm. That's normal. It was just an alarm this time, Naruto, she replied a little more softly, but what if the next time I forget to set up detection traps when we are in enemy territory? Or I forget the scroll we are supposed to be transporting? Or forget, she spread her hands on her dress, a ninja can't afford to make stupid mistakes. Naruto and Sasuke were silent at this. The air of tension diminishing a little as they all inspected their shoes, or the clouds, or the trees. Sakura was the first to break the silence. So, she clapped her hands, I don't mind the teaching, because it's part of my goal to beat stupid Ino Pig and become the best kunoichi ever. But if we, she hesitated, if we took turns making lunch. That would help a lot. Okay, she took that to be two agreements. And since Sasuke offered, he can make lunch for tomorrow. The tension in his shoulders began to relax and he nodded in agreement. Okay, peace. She held out the two fingers marking the end of a sparring match. Sasuke peered at them and then, reluctantly, wrapped his two fingers around hers. Peace. Naruto's hand wrapped around theirs and hoisted their arms to the sky. Team 7 for the win. Believe it, Sakura's pav. It wasn't fair, Sakura thought as she opened the wooden lacquer bento and gazed inside. It just wasn't fair. Why did Sasuke have to be good at everything? This bento looked like it came out of one of Choji's cookbooks. There were 5 colors, 5 flavors, 5 different ways of cooking the material. The ratios between meat, rice, and sides was perfect. The carrots were cut into the shape of flowers. He must have spent hours on this, Sakura realized. Wow, Sasuke this is. Naruto trailed off, at a loss for words. TCH. Sasuke sounded pleased. It could be better. It really couldn't. Sakura protested. Her mouth was watering just from the smell. Fat, salted salmon, delicately rolled omelets. My mom made better. Sakura froze, then glanced up at Sasuke. He was looking away from them, as if memorizing the pattern of the shadows on the ground. Her voice was softer than intended, she must have been a good cook then. Yeah, Sasuke shoved his hands further into his pocket, glaring at the ground. She was. Naruto shifted, as if he was about to say something, but Sakura shook her head quickly. This was the first time Sasuke had ever mentioned his parents or his past. If they pushed it, get off, Dobi. Sakura blinked. Naruto had his arms around Sasuke's shoulders, holding on for dear life, as Sasuke frantically tried to get away. No, Naruto clung tighter. You're just like me, but don't you get it? We're not alone anymore. We have Sakura-chan, and I'm not like you. Sakura-chan, help. Sakura hesitated. On one hand, Sasuke could probably extract himself from Naruto's grip 14 different ways. On the other hand, if Sasuke was accepting hugs, are my cute students having a picnic without me? Kakashi-sensei. Their teacher was crouched over the bentos, chopsticks in hand. When he saw them looking, he raised a hand in greeting. Yo, 0x0x0x0.